I'm Professor Shanafelt, by the way. I don't know if I told you my name, but I'm basically some wandering lunatic they found at Zilker. Just kind of, they said, "Do you know Anglo-Saxon poetry?" I said, "Why, yes. It's such a coincidence." And they said, "Well, can you come teach some here?" First, we're going to talk about some really interesting stuff. I think it's interesting. It has to do with what's called the Middle Ages, right? In the Middle Ages, you've probably heard it your whole life. So check it out. What is the meaning of life? It's a stupid question, right? It's cliche. And maybe it's something I can't tell you. But in the end, isn't it the only question? Like, it's the only, why are you guys here right now? You're here because you want to get a degree and you're listening to me pontificate about Anglo-Saxon poetry of all things. But why? Well, Shanafelt, to have a better life, to get better job, but why? What's the point, right? And so I want you to keep that in mind today as we're studying these poems. And I want you to really think about it. And at the end, I want to come back to that question and tell me what you think it is. What is the meaning of life? Why in the hell are we here? Why am I sitting here doing this with you right now? It is an important question, right? So keep it in mind. And at the end, let's return to it. The medieval period. Now, please forgive me. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I see how to do this. This is available. All of my PowerPoints and this is a presentation are available online at SlideShare, and I'll try to get you a link to them in the end. But you could probably find them just by typing in LitNotes, LITNOTS, on SlideShare. But anyway, here we go. I usually keep it like this because otherwise it takes over my whole medieval period. It seems like it might be a boring concept, but it's really not. It's really fascinating, the medieval period. So what does Renaissance mean? The Renaissance means rebirth. But that must mean that the medieval period was dead. If Renaissance means rebirth, then we must be dead. And, you know, and medieval scholars, which I am not one, my expert is American literature, but my expertise is American literature. But nonetheless, medieval scholars, they take great exception to being dead. Okay. What we're talking about is not medieval. We're talking about the Middle Ages. Now, the Middle Ages in England are broken into three portions: Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Norman, and Middle English. All right. So the medieval period is Anglo-Norman plus the Middle English periods. I'm going to talk about those briefly because I need to explain the evolution of language, the English language. However, what we will deal with today is Anglo-Saxon poetry. All right. The Wanderer and the Seafarer.
Jon lagula de longa skjelde, preran med hondom, hrimkjelde se, waden rakklastas, weird with full ared. Swakweth erdstapa, erfetha jamundig, afra wel slechta, winne mega hryre, oft it skjelde ane uchne je wiltje, mine tjera quithan.
You can't understand it, can you? That is what's called Old English. And that is this poem, The Wanderer, that we're going to study in Old English. And it looks like, it's like this. Bam. See that? So this is Old English. Now, at the beginning of our language, it was a Germanic language. And Germanic languages are different from Romance languages. So a Romance language, you might say Casablanca. Just the most common Spanish phrase, ¿Dónde está el casa? ¿Dónde está la casa? So like you're conjugating your verb for who says it, right? And various other things. La Casablanca would be the house, white. But in English, we have it different. We have subject, verb, direct object, and that's Germanic. And the Romance languages, which are Italian, Spanish, French, they roll off the tongue and they romance. And so English is not like that. It's very strong, very straight to the point. Subject, verb, direct object, subject, verb, direct object. I hit the ball. I had a great day. I did well. All right. That comes from that old English, that Germanic portion of our English. Now you can't read it. Now, I'm going to tell you something insane. Have you ever noticed? Okay, just look at the word medieval right here. Is it hard to spell? Hell yeah, it's hard to spell. M-E-D-I-E-V-A-L. Think about the word phonics. P-H-O-N-I. It's not phonetical. Have you ever thought about that? How screwed up the English language is? It's riddled with silent letters, grammatical exceptions. Oh, look at medieval. I before E except after C and blah, 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 right? Okay, there's those two things. But when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, so that would make it I. So even the word medieval illustrates my point. English is screwed up, and it's because of this right here. Oh, not that. It's because of the Anglo-Norman time period. Now check it out. There was a guy named William the Conqueror. He was a Norman, Norse. So Norse is originally Northmen, Norse, and then when they get to France, they are Vikings. They're Vikings. The men from the north, the Norsemen. And then finally it comes to Norman. They invaded everyone, you guys, but they invaded France until finally the king of France said, okay, I give up. You can have part of France. And that is that upper, it'd be the northwest portion of France. And they called it, guess what? Normandy. And so they gave these Vikings this piece of France. And those Vikings became integrated with the French people, and they became Normans. All right. Now, the history of Britain goes like this. In the very beginning, it was an island inhabited by the Celts, the Celtic people. They were Druids, very spiritual people, in tune with nature, in tune with the spirits of the forest. When they went into battle, they painted their entire bodies like blue or red and went into battle screaming in a barbarous tongue, naked. Those are I want to party with those cats, man. The Celts. But now I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind right here. Next comes the Anglo-Saxon time period. We, myself included, have been teaching forever and forever that the Anglo-Saxons are, I think I probably even have it right here. The Anglo-Saxons are warlike people that they are very warlike, but that they conquered England. That's not necessarily true. The new scholarship has shown that there's no archaeological evidence for the Anglo-Saxon people invading England in the way that you think. In the way that they think it happened now is just like a migration. Yes, there was fighting between the Anglo-Saxons and the Celts. They call Britons, who lived up in the mountains of Britain. They're kind of like Native Americans, the Britons. They lived in the mountains. They're like native English people. They weren't necessarily Celts. They were called Britons. So that's where we get the word Britain. We get the word England from the Angles. So there were three different people who came in, Anglo-Saxon people, who came in and settled England. And they were the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. And that's where we get Anglo-Saxon. And there was a monk who decided to write the history of England, and he wrote it in such a way as to make the Anglo-Saxons these invading, conquering people. But archaeology doesn't bear it out. What archaeology tells us is that the Anglo-Saxons lived at the same time with the Celts and with the Brits and with all the people who were living there at the time. Okay, enough said about that. In 1066, a guy named William the Conqueror, who happened to be a Norman, he felt like he had a claim to the English throne. So he invaded England at the Battle of Hastings, and he won. He won. So for a time, the England was ruled by French Vikings, for lack of a better word. And that is this Anglo-Norman period. They spoke Old French. That's called Old French, Old English, Old French. It's a dialect, okay? What they did is they brought in French, this Old French, and they made it the national language of England. And during that time period, the upper class, the people who participated in the law, who were courtiers, they spoke this language, and it infused with what's called with Old English, right? Which we just heard a little bit of. And Old English is Flichtenstein and Frockenstein. It's like, whoa. But it infused this Norman, and so what was a very phonetical language, the Old English is phonetical, meaning if they were to say the Old English word knight, like a knight in shining armor, it would be Knockdicht. Knockdicht. So they say every syllable. A knife is knifey. Right. And so what happens, if you've ever been to France, the goal of the French language is to leave out as many sounds as you can until it's just vowels like. And so think about meshing those two things, and then you get Middle English. And Middle English is, let me do that one real quick. One that April with his shower soote, the drought of March has pierced to the roote, and bathed every vin in switch liqueur, of which vindur engendered is the fluor. One Zephyrus eke, with his sweet breath, inspired hath in every holt and heath, the tender croppice and the young sun hath in the ram his hat. I'm Professor Shanafelt, by the way. I don't know if I told you my name, but I'm basically some wandering lunatic they found at Zilker. Just kind of, they said, "Do you know Anglo-Saxon poetry?" I said, "Why, yes. It's such a coincidence." And they said, "Well, can you come teach?" So I'm here. First, we're going to talk about some really interesting stuff. I think it's interesting. It has to do with what's called the Middle Ages, right? In the Middle Ages, you've probably heard it your whole life. So check it out. What is the meaning of life? It's a stupid question, right? It's cliche. And maybe it's something I can't tell you. But in the end, isn't it the only question? Like, it's the only, why are you guys here right now? You're here because you want to get a degree, and you're listening to me pontificate about Anglo-Saxon poetry of all things. But why? Well, Shanafelt, to have a better life, to get better job, but why? What's the point, right? And so I want you to keep that in mind today as we're studying these poems. And I want you to really think about it. And at the end, I want to come back to that question and tell me what you think it is. What is the meaning of life? Why in the hell are we here? Why am I sitting here doing this with you right now? It is an important question, right? So keep it in mind. And at the end, let's return to it. The medieval period. Now, please forgive me. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I see how to do this. This is available. All of my PowerPoints and this is a presentation are available online at SlideShare, and I'll try to get you a link to them in the end. But you could probably find them just by typing in LitNotes, LITNOTS, on SlideShare. But anyway, here we go. I usually keep it like this because otherwise it takes over my whole medieval period. It seems like it might be a boring concept, but it's really not. It's really fascinating, the medieval period. So what does Renaissance mean? The Renaissance means rebirth. But that must mean that the medieval period was dead. If Renaissance means rebirth, then we must be dead. And, and medieval scholars, which I am not one, my expert is American literature, but My expertise is American literature, but nonetheless, medieval scholars, they take great exception to being dead. Okay, what we're talking about is not medieval, we're talking about the Middle Ages. Now, the Middle Ages in England are broken into three portions: Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Norman, and Middle English. All right, so the medieval period is Anglo-Norman plus the Middle English periods. I'm going to talk about those briefly because I need to explain the evolution of language, the English language. However, what we will deal with today is Anglo-Saxon poetry. All right, the Wanderer and the Seafarer.
Jon lagula de longa skjölde, reran med hondom, hrimkälde se. Waden rakklastas, weird with full ared. Swakweth erdstapa, erfetha jamundig, afra wel slechta, winne meiga chryre. Oft it skjölde ane uchne je chwiltje, minne tjera quithan.
You can't understand it, can you? That is what's called Old English. And that is this poem, The Wanderer, that we're going to study in Old English. And it looks like, it's like this. Bam. See that? So this is Old English. Now, at the beginning of our language, it was a Germanic language. And Germanic languages are different from Romance languages. So a Romance language, you might say Casablanca. Just the most common Spanish phrase, ¿Dónde está el casa? ¿Dónde está la casa? So like you're conjugating your verb for who says it, right? And various other things. La Casablanca would be the house, white. But in English, we have it different. We have subject, verb, direct object, and that's Germanic. And the Romance languages, which are Italian, Spanish, French, they roll off the tongue and they romance. And so English is not like that. It's very strong, very straight to the point. Subject, verb, direct object, subject, verb, direct object. I hit the ball. I had a great day. I did well. All right. That comes from that Old English, that Germanic portion of our English. Now, you can't read it. Now, I'm going to tell you something insane. Have you ever noticed, okay, just look at the word medieval right here. Is it hard to spell? Hell yeah, it's hard to spell. M-E-D-I-E-V-A-L. Think about the word phonics. P-H-O-N-I. It's not phonetical. Have you ever thought about that? How screwed up the English language is? It's riddled with silent letters, grammatical exceptions. Oh, look at medieval. I before E except after C and blah, 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 right? Okay, there's those two things. But when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, so that would make it I. So even the word medieval illustrates my point. English is screwed up, and it's because of this right here. Oh, not that. It's because of the Anglo-Norman time period. Now check it out. There was a guy named William the Conqueror. He was a Norman, Norse. So Norse is originally Northmen, Norse. And then when they get to France, they are Vikings. They're Vikings. The men from the north, the Norsemen. And then finally it comes to Norman. They invaded everyone, you guys, but they invaded France until finally the king of France said, okay, I give up. You can have part of France. And that is that upper, it'd be the northwest portion of France. And they called it, guess what? Normandy. And so they gave these Vikings this piece of France. And those Vikings became integrated with the French people and they became Normans. All right. Now, the history of Britain goes like this. In the very beginning, it was an island inhabited by the Celts, the Celtic people. They were Druids, very spiritual people. In tune with nature, in tune with the spirits of the forest. When they went into battle, they painted their entire bodies like blue or red and went into battle screaming in a barbarous tongue, naked. Those are some, I want to party with those cats, man. The Celts. But what, now this, I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind right here. Next comes the Anglo-Saxon time period. We, myself included, have been teaching forever and forever that the Anglo-Saxons are, I think I probably even have it right here. The Anglo-Saxons are warlike people, that they can, they are very warlike, but that they conquered England. That's not necessarily true. The new scholarship has shown that there's no archaeological evidence for the Anglo-Saxon people invading England in the way that you think. In the way that they think it happened now is just like a migration. Yes, there was fighting between the Anglo-Saxons and the Celts. They call Britons, who lived up in the mountains of Britain. They're kind of like Native Americans, the Britons. They lived in the mountains. There's like native English people. They weren't necessarily Celts. They were called Britons. So that's where we get the word Britain. We get the word England from the Angles. So there were three different people who came in, Anglo-Saxon people, who came in and settled England. And they were the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. And that's where we get Anglo-Saxon. And there was a monk who decided to write the history of England, and he wrote it in such a way as to make the Anglo-Saxons these invading, conquering people. But archaeology doesn't bear it out. What archaeology tells us is that the Anglo-Saxons lived at the same time with the Celts and with the Brits and with all the people who were living there at the time. Okay, enough said about that. In 1066, a guy named William the Conqueror, who happened to be a Norman, he felt like he had a claim to the English throne. So he invaded England at the Battle of Hastings, and he won. He won. So for a time, the England was ruled by French Vikings, for lack of a better word. And that is this Anglo-Norman period. They spoke Old French. That's called Old French, Old English, Old French. It's a dialect, okay? What they did is they brought in French, this Old French, and they made it the national language of England. And during that time period, the upper class, the people who participated in the law, who were courtiers, they spoke this language, and it infused with what's called with Old English, right? Which we just heard a little bit of. And Old English is Flichtenstein and Frockenstein. Right? It's like, whoa, whoa. But it infused this Norman, and so what was a very phonetical language, the Old English is phonetical, meaning if they were to say the Old English word knight, like a knight in shining armor, it would be Knocdicht. Knocdicht. So they say every syllable. A knife is knifey. Right. And so what happens, if you've ever been to France, the goal of the French language is to leave out as many sounds as you can until it's just vowels like. And so think about meshing those two things, and then you get Middle English. And Middle English is, let me do that one real quick. One that April with his shower sute, the drought of March has pierced to the root, and bathed every vin in switch liqueur, of which vindur engendered is the fluor. One Zephyrus eke, with his sweet breath, inspired hath in every holt and heath, the tender croppis, and the young sun hath in the ram his half-course run. And small fowls make melody, and sleepen all the night with open ear. So pricketh him nature in her courages, than Logan folk to go on pilgrimages. So see, I mean, maybe speaking it, you may not know what the heck they're talking about. When you look at it though, you can pretty, it's when that April with his showers soot has the drought of March has pierced the world to the root and bathed every vine in sweet liquor. See, you can kind of feel that. So this is the evidence. This is the progression of language. That's Middle English. Now, most people would think that Shakespeare is Middle English. Methinks he doth protest too much, dear sir. No, that's actually modern English. But my point in all of this is telling you that Old English you can't read. Middle English you can read. Anglo-Norman is French. We took those three things and meshed them together to a Frankenstein language that is ours today. And that's why we have so many odd spellings, silent letters. I mean, if I was king for a day, I would outlaw silent letters. And even the word phonics, wait, you pronounce it how it sounds, it's not phonetical. And then you have all the different, oh, it's I before E except in words like neighbor and way and the 5 other, you know. Okay, so that's the history of the English language that we're talking about, right? I have more here, but we're really not studying I'm sorry, we're really not studying. Here's some, this is what I just read you. I believe, no, this is the Knight's Tale from Canterbury Tales. It's called an illuminated manuscript, but we're really not studying that. We're really studying the Anglo-Saxons. So the Anglo-Saxons are the Germanic people who invaded or settled, whatever you want to say. This is a real like tense topic in history and literature right now. But they are said to be warlike people. When they write epic poetry. The Epic of Beowulf is a treasure. Man, it's a treasure like nothing else. And it's the oldest Western society, in other words, epic that we have. It survives in one manuscript, just one. Beowulf is an epic hero. He goes on, there's at least 4 different battle scenes. And it is like all Anglo-Saxon poetry, it is overdone. Like, Beowulf fell beneath the waves and battled Grendel's mother for 4 days and didn't take a breath. And then he slocked off her head with the Umferth sword and she was dead. And he arose from it. It is way overdone. The epic starts with one word, period. So. So, it starts with the word so. And you guys, the Anglo-Saxons, the way their society worked, it revolved around a feudal lord. And the lord was the holder of everything. And the knights, or the warriors, as you could call them, their job was to show fealty to their lord above all things, very much like a samurai, very much like a knight, a medieval knight. Their job was to show obeisance and fealty and fight to the death and never betray. That is the main thing. You must never betray your lord. It's very much like the Viking culture, the Norse culture. We know that the Anglo-Saxon culture existed in England for sure. It's just that, did they conquer England? And they're thinking now it was more like a migration than a conquering. But what they longed for is to go pillaging. They wanted to go pillaging. And think about this, you guys. What is the meaning of life? Well, I don't know quite yet, but doesn't it have something to do with being remembered? Maybe. Maybe it has something to do with once you die, you're preserved in some way. That's certainly what it was for the Anglo-Saxon warriors. And ladies, I hate this. I despise it. But romantic love, in fact, love of any kind, no. Love between man and woman doesn't appear in Anglo-Saxon poetry. So it is misogynistic to the max. In fact, in Beowulf, there is this one section where the poet is enumerating the sons of a king, and there was Hrumfirth, and he did this, and there was Beowulf, and he did this, and there was this, and then there was a wife, and he come to the wife and says, and there was also good Wealhtheow, and I've heard that she was, I'm going to say it in the actual words if I can, a balm in bed for a battle-scarred Swede. Actually, I take it back. She didn't even have a name. So they didn't even dignify her with a name. They just said this was his daughter and she was good in bed. That's misogynistic. So that's what we're dealing with here. But at the same time, it is what we have. So we study it, right? Now, one of the main things I want to impart to you today is that Anglo-Saxon literature, the epic poem and the poems that we'll read today, they are written in what's called alliterative verse. Alliterative verse. And it's generally 2 lines. So this is the Wanderer. This is one version of the Wanderer. Let me find one. Okay. It goes like this. In the Wanderer, okay, it's what we call dactylic trimeter. So it is a stressed syllable followed by 2, usually 2 unstressed syllables. So it sounds like this. Da, 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 or dum, dee, dee, dum, dee, dee, dum, dee, dee, dum, dee, dee. So there's 2 feet on one side of this, which is a caesura. And a caesura is a natural pause in a line of poetry. So there are 2 pieces to this thing. There are 2 stress syllables here, 2 dactyls usually, and there are 2 dactyls over here. So it's a 4 stressed line. There's 4 stresses in this line, and it goes dum da da dum da da dum da da dum da da. Now, isn't that just like some warrior? And I'm telling you, the Anglo-Saxon culture was all about the mead hall. There was the Lord, there was the Lord's lady, and then there was the mead hall. And they were getting wasted in the mead hall every night. Every night they were in there getting drunk on what's called mead. And that is honey. It's honey and water fermented. Yeah, it gets you really drunk. And they were in there just getting plastered. And what do? You have a bard, which they called a shop, S-C-H-O-P, shop. And he would be strumming the harp and retelling the deeds of some hero. Rum ta ta rum ta ta. Rum ta ta rum ta ta. It's pretty, and they would all be just getting drunk and beating on the table and wanting to hear and these shops, they would travel from village to village. And this is like the bards, whatever you want to say it, like Homer. So what is the meaning of life? For the Anglo-Saxons, it's to be remembered in the songs of the shops. This is the only way to be known. This is the only way to make a difference. They had no illusions of saving the world or making things right. They just wanted their heroic deeds to be remembered in the mead halls. And that, okay. Now, what is alliterative verse? Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds. The summertime soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink from the service of his country. All those S's, or another example with S's, the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain, right? Thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, you have alliteration with this. And so it goes like this. Rum ta ta rum ta ta da ta ta da ta ta rum ta ta da ta ta rum ta ta da rum, and it doesn't have to be R's, and it can be anything. It can be they're very fond of F's. Fa da da, fa da da, rum da da, da da da, fa da da, rum da. So it's not really a rhyme, but it is this alliterative sound, and it sounds like, and the outcome of it is that it sounds like a few things that would be very interesting to the Anglo-Saxon warrior. Number one, a column of troops marching. Bum, 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 off the lonely one for our. It could sound like deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the sight, you see that? It's your heartbeat. In our case. How about the anvil? I could probably go get a hammer. Ching, 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 hammering out a sword. Wow. Okay. Now you're talking. Now you're talking. Okay. The one that I want you guys to get for the Wanderer. So that's alliterative verse. And in our case, it's generally dactylic tetrameter, meaning 4 stresses. That'd be 4 dactyls separated by a caesura. All right. This is the one I want you guys to get. I'm going to put this in the chat. Hello. I'm going to put this in the chat. You guys can download that if you would like to follow along with me. Now, because there's various translations, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Beowulf is written in a little bit different. It's trochaic tetrameter. So it looks like this dum da dum da dum da dum da. That is not iambic, which is ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. This is dum da dum. It's much more appropriate to the, okay. A powerful monster living down in the darkness, growled in pain, impatient, as day after day the music rang loud in the hall. So Hrothgar's men lived happily in his hall. See all the alliteration, D, 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 and then the ha, 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 right? While I'm thinking about it, there are 2 different types of alliteration, good alliteration and just alliteration. Good alliteration is when you can make that sound with the alliteration itself sound like the thing you are attempting to describe. So think about this. Emily Dickinson, one of my favorites, she has this poem, I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died. And it goes like this. There's a line in it that says, and with stumbling blue buzz between the light and me. It's a fly. What does a fly sound like? Zzz, 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 zzz. But with stumbling blue buzz between lights, and see how she made that line buzz? That's good alliteration. Or the one that I gave you earlier, summertime, the silken, sad, uncertain rustling, because you can hear all that. It's almost like you can hear the curtains rustling, right? So, okay. I want to show you the manuscript. This is Beowulf. It was in the Great Fire of London. Damn near got burned up, and this is the only one we have, right? So Anglo-Saxon themes, there's this heroic code, the code of the warrior. Leadership, what is it? What is a good leader? Bravery, generosity, hospitality. A lot of it is really, really good, positive messages, really. And then there's revenge. Okay. Now, in England, I can show it to you on this map right here. It was in nah, I don't have it. Never mind. In England, this place right here is Sutton Hoo, right about right here. If you can see my mouse, right about here. In Sutton Hoo, they made a hell of a discovery. It's a farmer. Said, hey man, let's excavate those big mounds out there. They seem like burial mounds. Okay. They found this. They found a burial ship of an Anglo-Saxon lord. 1939, 80 feet long, and it had all the treasures that you would bury, that you would think you would bury a lord with. Now, you've probably seen the Vikings, with they say, you know, you light the ship on fire and send it to sea and all that kind of stuff. Well, apparently not for the Anglo-Saxons. Same concept, but they buried it. And it stayed buried until 1939. So that's pretty good. Now, this helmet right here, that's the actual one that they pulled out of the ground. This one is a replica. Can you just close your eyes and imagine the wealth that you would have in order to have that? Now, keep in mind, the Anglo-Saxons occupy the time period after the Romans left England. The Romans had to leave. They had to go home. Rome was under siege, or they were having trouble. And England was a pretty tough nut to crack too for the Romans. So they left. And then that created a power vacuum. And that's when they think all of these Germanic settlers, the Jutes, the Angles, the Saxons, along with the Celts and the Brits, were all there in England. Can you imagine the wealth you would have to have during that time period to be buried with all this loot? Look at this. One more thing I want to say. What we will read and what you will read in Anglo-Saxon poetry is infused with Christianity. It is bipolar, I'm telling you. It has both the old pagan gods of the Anglo-Saxons and the new Christian God. And so in everything you'll read, including Beowulf. Now, in the originally, when I first started teaching this, well, see, I'm only 25, you guys. So I've been teaching it two days. I try to psych myself out. But anyway, when I first started teaching this, the idea was that Anglo-Saxons wrote these texts, and they wrote them and infused their pagan gods in it. And then later on, the Christian monks who were inscribing the text added the Christian elements. Now, in the case of Beowulf, they think it was both. It was the poet included both at the time of the writing. First, wrote it orally, and then much, much later it was written down. And we will talk about that with the Wanderer today as well. Okay, now that's that for that thing. Let's talk for a moment about translating this. So to translate this would be very difficult. In fact, the British, I'm sorry, someone is really upset with me right now for saying this. The Irish poet Seamus Heaney won the Nobel Prize for Literature for translating Beowulf. You ask yourself, why? From Old English to modern English. You ask yourself, why? I mean, what's so big? What's the big whoop? Well, it's kind of like the Holy Grail, because you have to not only transcribe the words, but you have to transcribe the alliterative value and the meter. You have to get the dum da da dum da da. You know, you have to get that plus the alliteration, long, long, and you have to get the whole meaning right. You might go for making a beautiful poem, make a beautiful language, but it won't be alliterative. Well, you might go for the alliterative value, and then it's kind of crap. You use crappy words, not indicative of the original. So to get all that right, to get it all together, is a hell of a feat. It's a heck of a deal. And so I'm reading from the Norton Anthology today. This is the translation that we have in there, and I like it fairly well. Alfred David did this translation, But another very popular translation is from none other than Tolkien. Yep, the writer of Lord of the Rings. And you'll see many, many parallels here. In fact, he just straight up took a lot of the ideas from this poem, The Wanderer. No kidding. Yeah, no kidding. So we'll see that as we go. All right. I want you to know there are several parts to this. There is the introduction, and that is written by the poet. And then there is the words of the wanderer himself. Okay, let's start off line 1. Often the lone dweller longs for relief. The Almighty's mercy through melancholy, his hands turning time and again. The ocean's currents, the ice-cold seas, following paths of exile. Fate is firmly set. There's the first stanza. So let's look at the alliterative value. Now, of course, the Caesura, spelled like C-E-S-U-R-A, Caesura, is that space between the two portions of the line. So let me find one that shows alliteration very well. Look at line 33. Heart freezing frost, not fruits of the earth. You see all those F's? Now, the F sound is, it's not particularly pleasant sound, right? Okay, heart. So you can you'll see it. And so I think this translator really went for the alliterative value. Who are we talking about? We're talking about a wanderer, a lone dweller. This lone dweller comes from the Old English word anhaga. That means one hedge enclosure. So it means one who dwells alone, like walking round and round between hedges. Okay. Later on, he is called Erd Strapa, which means earth treader. It's sad. It's a sad poem. Now I'll just jump and steal the thunder, because what it is this is what we would call in the medieval time period, we would call them a knight errant. A knight errant is a knight. Now the whole idea of a knight is that you are connected with a lord. This is feudalism, right? You're connected with a king or the lord of your castle. And this is the person to whom you have pledged your everlasting loyalty. You've pledged your sword. And that for you is the meaning of life. That relationship between you and your Lord. You will die for him. Equally as much, die for the lady of the castle. But a knight errant is a knight who has detached himself from any lord at all and travels the world seeking adventure. Don Quixote is the best example of that. This person is an Anglo-Saxon, the equivalent of a knight. This person is not searching the world for adventure. No way. This person's entire tribe, entire clan, the lord of to whom he's pledged his loyalty, they're all dead. His kinsmen, his lovers, his children, everyone he's ever known is gone. They're dead. And it is the result of a failed battle. Now think about that. Think about that very carefully, because here we have what you might call in the samurai tradition, you might call this person a Ronin. It's a samurai detached from any lord. But think about that. For this knight, for this Anglo-Saxon knight, warrior, the meaning of life is literally to serve his lord. to protect his land, his clan, his people. And they're all dead. So failure upon failure. Oh, horror. Oh, horror. Not only that, but for the Anglo-Saxons, the way to self-fulfillment, self-actualization is to be remembered in the songs, is to be remembered with no people. How will you be remembered in the mead hall? Who will strum the harp and tell your story? No one. So it's failure on top of failure. Wow. So on that note, let me ask you this. The songs that you listen to, they're all happy, right? They're all like, oh, I'm so happy and everything is great today. And, I just woke up today and felt great. Probably not. What are they almost all about? Breakups, right? Heartache of every type. And doesn't that make, I always use Alanis Morissette as my example. I mean, see, Jagged Little Pill, you listen to the lyrics of that album, and that's some dark stuff. Listen to Adele. We could have had it all, but you played it. Right? Listen to Adele. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. Rolling in the deep, right? I mean, gosh. She's been hurt, hasn't she? Adele. That woman's been hurt. How about Edgar Allan Poe? How about The Raven? How about all the great love poems? They come from a place of darkness, right? They come from despair. And I ask you, have you ever had your heart broken? It's like someone reached into your chest and ripped out your soul and showed it to you. And then pitched it in the wastebasket. And then slapped you a few times and kicked you down and spit on you. And here you are laying on the ground, right? A heartbreak is terrible. I very much suggest that you try it sometime. You're like, wait, what? No, it's a seminal part of life, isn't it? How can you know yourself if you've never had your heart broken? It's going to hurt, ladies, guys. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt bad. But in our case today, it's worse than a heartache. Everything that meant anything to you is gone. Your mission in life, your purpose of existence is gone. They're all dead. And you have some curse to live on and wander the land, lonely, with no one to tell him. This is sadness brought to life. Okay, now here's the last part of the poet. So spoke the wanderer, weary of hardships, cruel combats, the death of kinsmen. Now this is what he's saying. This right here is the voice of the wanderer himself. Picture this wanderer on his horse with his battle implements, riding through England. And here's what he says. Often alone, always at daybreak, I must lament my cares. Not one remains alive to whom I could utter the thoughts in my heart. I must lament my cares. Not one remains alive to whom I could. You see that boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. In the midst of all that, you have the alliterative value, which is, well, not so much in that one, in those lines, but not one person remains alive to whom I could utter the thoughts of my heart. That is a damn lonely proposition, isn't it? And I'm just gonna steal my own thunder. And I'm gonna say the most profound thing I've maybe ever heard is not even from a book. Into the Wild is the book it's from, and it's a movie. And this didn't occur in the book, but at the very end of Into the Wild, Chris Machambliss, who goes to Alaska and basically starves to death. In the movie, at the end, he scrawls the message that he learned on a piece of cardboard, and this is left behind, and it says, "Happiness only valid when shared." Does that say anything to you about COVID? About being stuck in your damn house for a year, right? Happiness only valid when shared. Don't you long to be out there with your people? Or maybe you have been, I don't know. Don't you long to be at the coffee shop, at the bar, at the, I don't know, maybe you race bicycles, whatever you do. Maybe you're a musician. I don't know, whatever you do. Happiness only valid when shared. Not one remains alive to whom I could utter the thoughts in my heart. And how about this? Guys, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it. It doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that I agree with it, but I reckon it's so. Boys, guys, if you're in the football team, you're 12 years old, you're in Pop Warner, whatever that is. Someone hits you real hard, can you cry? No. Why? That's a social, it's a social construct, right? Boys, it's battle, beat into your brain. You don't show, if you get up, rub some dirt on it, son. To whom could a knight share his innermost thoughts? Only a few people, right? They're gone now. They're gone. And I'm not saying that's right, but I'm saying it's part of our society. Tell him my sorrows. In truth, I know that. For any earl, an excellent virtue is to lock tight the treasure chest within one's heart. Howsoever he may think, a downcast heart won't defy destiny, nor the sad spirit give sustenance. This is what he's saying. He's saying, I cannot let it show. What kind of a knight is a knight who shows up, they're all gone and I just feel so bad? Probably not one that's going to be taken seriously very long. And I would love that knight. Me personally, I'd be like, dude, let's talk about it. But take it what it would be today and multiply it times 1,000 for the Anglo-Saxon period. They have to show fortitude. But he can't. He's locked in the prison of his own mind, and his heart is locked in the prison of his chest. Look at the alliteration in line 16. Nor the sad spirit give sustenance. Even the C on the end, sustenance. And maybe you could make a case for that's like, or he has to be quiet, right? He can't tell his sorrows to everyone. So, sad spirit sustenance. And therefore those who thirst for fame often bind fast their breast chamber. It's pretty overdone, isn't it? But check it out. That right there, breast chamber, is what's called, it's very indicative of Anglo-Saxon literature, and it's called a kenning, K-E-N-N-I-N-G. It's where you take two words, and put them together to make another idea. For example, ring giver. Who is the ring giver? The king. You don't really say king. It's ring giver, ring giver. You have to say it in the Anglos, ring giver. So, in this case, it's your breast chamber. So what's he saying? He's saying, I have to keep all these thoughts bottled up inside. Today we have what's called the stages of grief. We have denial, and then it goes on from there. I think this poem shows the stages of grief, and they're different. Okay. So I must hold in the thoughts of my heart, though often wretched, bereft of my homeland, far from kinfolk, bind them with fetters. Now we're talking. Look, this guy, this poor man, he feels as if he has no one to talk to. He has, I mean, happiness only valid when shared, right? You need a familiar face, a familiar ear. Doesn't that help when you feel like crap? And guys, when your lady comes home and she's feeling, don't try to fix it, just listen. Doesn't it help when someone just listens, someone just to hear you, to validate your feelings? All people, not men, women, all people. But he doesn't have that. He must bind his thoughts. And in fact, he says, bind them with fetters. What is a fetter but chains and manacles? So now he has personified his deepest thoughts and feelings, the woe, the terrible depression that he's feeling. He's personified those thoughts and chained them up with like manacles, ankle chains, handcuffs for lack of a better word, and chained to the wall inside his breast chamber. Yes, I know it's overdone, very grandiose, right? But think about this is some of the first writing we have in Western society. You know, the Exeter book from which this comes, and by the way, we have it in one manuscript. The Exeter book was probably created around 975 Common Era AD, but this was probably from an oral tradition much earlier. Since in days long past with darkness of earth I covered my gold friend, and I feared from there over the waves bed, winter weary, longing for a hall and a lord of rings. That is literally where Tolkien got the Lord of the Rings. Bam. There it is. There it is. And his gold friend is the king, his Lord. He longs for him. He longs for the Lord. This is the meaning of everything. The one to whom I pledge my sword, right? Have you guys seen Game of Thrones? If you have not, you need to start tonight, right after this class. You will see many parallels in Game of Thrones. Longing for a hall and a Lord of Rings, where near and far I might find one in the mead hall, remembering me and my kin. Remember the mead hall? This is where they're getting drunk and the harp's playing. I might find someone there with a familiar face, someone who remembers me, someone who remembers my family. But no, they're all gone. Or else show favor to a friendless man, requite me with comfort, one acquainted with pain. Understands how cruel a traveling companion sorrow is for someone with few friends at his side. So now we have personified sorrow. Sorrow is the one who is there with him. Sorrow. This is his traveling companion. Exile attends him, not twisted gold rings. So instead of the rings given by the Lord for doing good deeds, for being brave in battle, instead of those rings, I have sorrow as a companion. Heart-freezing frost. Maybe that's what it sounds like stomping through the snow. Heart-freezing frost, nor fruits of the earth. He recalls table mates and treasure distributed. So who's distributing the treasure? The Lord of the land. How? From the first his friend and Lord helped him to the feast. That happy time is no more. So the first, I think it's Kierkegaard who said, true sorrow happens in silence. True sorrow, true grieving. And what is it to grieve but to search for something that you've lost? The meaning was there. It meant something. I had a love, I had a family, I had a lineage, I had a place where I belonged. I had people. The meaning was there. The meaning was that loyalty. But I grieve now because it's gone. I grieve for what is gone. True sorrow happens in silence. True sorrow, you curl up in a ball by yourself and just, oh God, it's so horrible. You can't tell anybody. Oh. According to Kierkegaard anyway. So that first phase is grieving in silence. He says over and over, I can't tell anybody. I can't say it to people. We have a circle. Give me a circle here. Mighty fine. Okay. This is your mind. That's the center. Cool. Go up. Okay. I guess this is going to be as good as I get. Okay. This is yourself right here. That's yourself. That is the real you. Okay? That's the real you. It's in the center. Okay, but watch this. You have this. Okay, this is from Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, and what I'm about to teach you, I think, is valuable in the world. Now, it may not be exactly perfect anymore when you're talking about psychology, psychiatry, but this is an excellent way, and it has a lot of serious truth to it. This is a way to think about things, okay? This is called your subconscious, right? This is your conscious mind up here. This is what you think with. This is your ego. This is inside your conscious mind, and this is what you think you are. This is who you think you are. When you wake up every day and you think of yourself, this is your image of yourself, your stored up image. That's who you think you are. But everything below this line is subconscious. It's below your conscious level. You can't reach it. What you have up here is called your persona. And that goes from like here around. I don't want to screw up my drawing, but it's like from here to here. That's your persona. Your persona is what you show others. So right now I'm Professor Shanafelt. But your persona has everything to do with the way you dress, the way you act, the words you say. This is what you show the world you are. Your ego is what you think you are. Your persona is what you show the world that you are. In America, we have a big difference between the persona and the ego. In America, you have you cordon off different parts of your life. Now, right now I'm Professor Shanafelt. Later on, I'll be husband. After that, I'll be, but in a lot of Eastern societies, there's no difference. The persona is the ego, like the Japanese. That's why a lot of times it's very hard for us to fully understand that culture. I mean, and I try. But the man comes home and he's the executive of the Toyota plant, and he's that always. Okay. But let's think down here. Here's yourself. Let's think about this. You think you're this. You show us you're this, but actually you're this. You don't even know who you are, because some of it is below your conscious level. Now watch this. What you have down here, I'm just going to draw it, and then I'm going to come back to, that's this crappy drawing. It's supposed to be a couple of wavy lines. So check it out. Before I get to that, this is your perception, right? What do? You perceive things all day long. Well, here comes a spider. You hate spiders. I'm going to draw the worst spider you've ever seen. Oh, that's not what I'm needing. Draw the worst spider you've ever seen. Ready? It's going to be like this. Oh, God, this is a terrible spider. He's got how many legs? 8? I hate spiders, you guys. And one more leg. Yeah, that's probably the worst spider I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, you see a spider. What do? You hate spiders. Do you wake up every morning and think about spiders? God, like a little crawl on my face, and I'm just getting my collar back here, and oh yeah, it's good. No! What do? You repress it. You repress it. So you push it down. You push it down below your self-conscious, below your conscious level, and those become repressed thoughts. You can repress memories. Something very traumatic happens to you. Maybe in war. I'm a veteran myself. Maybe some bad family business. Maybe an assault, whatever. You can repress this to where you just don't let it up. You just don't let it up. It's not coming up. You keep it down here. Okay, that's fine, except for what? When you go to sleep, what part of you builds those dreams that you have? You shut this off. Yeah, your conscious mind up here, you shut it off. It's done. You're not using it. And you're working exclusively in the subconscious area. So now you wonder, no wonder when you're in your dream and you're running and you're trying to run from the monster and your feet are in like jello and right? Yeah. So your dreams come from your subconscious. And that's why Freud and Jung were so intensely interested in dreams. Now, this right here is called your shadow. This is the opposite of your ego. It's your evil twin. Sometimes it comes out. You ever done something? You said, no, why? Now, why in the holy hell did I do that? Done something bad, and you're like, it's not like me. Or maybe in your dream, you do things, you're like, man, I wouldn't do that. You ever had a dream where you're yourself, but also not yourself at the same time? And Jung says down here we have what's called archetypal images. Archetypes. Carl Jung says that all human beings share a collective unconsciousness. Now this is going to curl up your toes. Carl Jung says we all share it. It's like an energy that pervades the world, and we all understand the same archetypes. And those archetypes are like warrior, mother, healer, mentor, teacher, fool, father. Whew. So, with that in mind, you should see myself now. With that in mind, think about this. This portion right here is the dream sequence. The first portion of the poem is suffering in silence. This portion is the dream. Ready? This, indeed, anyone forced to forego for long. The beloved counsel of his Lord knows well. Often when sorrow and sleep together bind the poor lone dweller in their embrace, he dreams, he clasps, and that he kisses his liege lord again and lays head and hands on the Lord's knees as he did long ago, enjoyed the gift giving in days gone by. This wells up directly out of his subconscious, out of his dream self, and it's a remembrance of the old times. He dreams of embracing his Lord, his liege Lord. And he dreams. Now this, for our current kind of sense of, some people might think, laying your head in another man's lap, I don't know, whatever. But no. He dreams of it. He dreams, he longs to lay his head in the lap of his Lord once again and clasp his hands, clasp his knees, and show him that love. So this is the second portion, which is the dream portion. But he awakes. It's over. It's gone. Then the warrior, friendless, awakens again, sees before him the fallow waves, seabirds on water spreading their wings, snow and hail falling, and sleet as well. Then the heart wounds grow heavier, sadness for dear ones, sorrow returns. Then through his mind pass memories of kinsmen. Joyfully he greets them, eagerly gazes his fellow warriors. The floating spirits fade on their way. They fail to bring much familiar talk. Trouble is renewed for any man who must often send his weary spirit over the waves' bend. The first was like a real dream. The second was remembrance, but they always awake into the horror of the world in which he actually inhabits. But here's the meaning. If there's a third section, this is where the meaning comes. I tell my students, you guys, we don't read this just for fun. Well, maybe we do. I don't know. But what we should be reading this for is the so what question. So what? So what? There's a dude he's lost his people and blah, blah. So what? What does it mean? How do we use it in our world today? What is the theme? What's the central meaning? What is it? Otherwise, it's just dead words on a page, right? Just dead words on a page. But here's the meaning. Therefore, I don't know why my woeful heart should not wax dark in this wide world when I look back on the life of earls. How quickly they quit the mead hall's floor, brave young men. So this Middle Earth, that's where he got it, Middle Earth right there. So this Middle Earth from day to day dwindles and fails. Therefore, no one is wise without his share of winters. Let's stop there. The Norse, I see very much Viking in this, but also the Norse, but the Anglo-Saxons, they measure time in winters. Imagine the winter in Norway. Imagine the winter in Sweden. Imagine the winter in northern Germany. It's cold. They measure time in winters. Aragon is wise with winters. Earls are like earls. Later on, they became warriors and knights. But he says, Therefore, no one is wise without his share of winters. There it is. To live is to suffer. Wisdom comes with pain. And the Buddhists will tell you life is pain. If you've seen the Princess Bride, you'll know life is pain. Anyone who tells you differently is selling something. But here we have it. Wisdom only comes with great pain. So is wisdom proportionate to the amount of pain? Maybe. So that would make this man very wise, right? A wise man, he says, therefore no one is wise without his share of winters in this world's kingdom. A wise man must be patient, not too hot of heart, nor hasty of speech, not reluctant to fight, nor too reckless, nor too timid, nor too glad, nor too greedy, and never eager to commit until he can be sure. This is the common set of values that he was taught by his society. These are the values that he kindles deep in his soul and his spirit. These are his core values. Don't be too hot of heart. Don't talk too much. Don't be a hot-tempered, ill-tempered person. Never be reluctant to fight, nor too reckless. Don't be reckless when you fight. I'll go with the Powell doctrine. If you're going to wage war, wage it in such a way as you bring so much power to bear on your enemy that they have no choice. They have no possible way to victory. Don't be reluctant to fight, but don't be reckless. Don't be too timid or too glad. Don't be a haughty, stuck-up person, but also don't slink off in the corner. And don't be too greedy. Take what comes your way, legitimate, and never eager to commit until he can be sure. Your word is everything for these knights, for a battle, for a warrior like that. It's everything. Your word. I pledge my sword to you. I pledge myself to you. You can't the next day be like, yeah, but this other dude down here, he's got a better deal for me. I'm going to go to, no, that is everlasting shame, right? Your word is everything. Don't be too eager to commit until you are sure. How about marriage? You better be sure. You want to wake up next to this person for 30 years, 40 years? You have to share a bank account. You're going to have kids together. Is this the kind of person you want to meet in a bar because she's hot? Yeah. Never too eager to commit until you are sure. You can glean great wisdom from these things. Before I forget it, I'm going to tell you what I think the meaning of life is. I feel like it's just to enjoy. Follow your bliss. Whatever it is for you, whatever that magic token is for you, whatever that enchanted object that hovers over the horizon, whatever that is for you, find it, seek it. Find out what you love and let it kill you. Follow your bliss. And I'll tell it to you in a poem that's very much like The Seafarer by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It's the last line, and I feel like this is the meaning of life, is to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. And maybe it's that not to yield part that is, don't be too reluctant to fight. Life is a battle. It's a battle against incredible odds every day. It could be a battle with your creditors. It could be a battle with your advisors. It could be a battle with whomever, your stupid Facebook people, your Instagram people. But don't be reluctant to be your own advocate, to voice your own opinion. Don't be afraid to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Follow your bliss. Seize the day. Memento mori. Remember, you must die. Someday you must die. Today is the only day. Yesterday is a dream. You can't go back to it. It's a dream. And tomorrow is a lie. Someone's trying to sell you something on tomorrow. Oh, you'll be happy if you just take this pill. If you just... Tomorrow's a lie. Today's the day. Seize the day. Find your bliss and go after it. A man should hold back his boast until that time has come when he truly knows to direct his heart on the right path. A wise man must know the misery of that time. That's why earlier today I said to you, I recommend having your heart broken. I don't envy you, but I recommend it because it's a seminal part of life. And from that suffering comes the flavor of life, the experience, maybe the wisdom. A wise man must know the misery of that time when the world's wealth shall all stand waste, just as in our own day, all over Middle Earth, walls are standing windswept and wasted, downed by frost, and dwellings covered with snow. The mead hall crumbles, its master lies dead, bereft of pleasures. All the warrior band perished. Boldly by the wall, battle took some, bore them away. A bird carried one above the high waves. The gray wolf took another, divided him with death. Dreary spirited, an earl buried another, and in an earthen pit like Sutton Hoo. Oh, listen to that. Listen to that beautiful language. Walls are standing windswept and wasted. Hear that alliteration? Walls were standing windswept, wasted. And I don't know, I mean, this is up to you, but if you look at our world today, would you think that it is doing great and well put together and yeah, we got it going on? Or is it falling apart? The walls, are they standing or are they windswept and wasted? Are the old values and morals and ideas still here? Or are they lying on the floor decaying somewhere in the frost? The people you admired and honored, your heroes, your great heroes, are they here or are they dead? Or have they slunk off into a corner themselves? Now, mankind's creator laid waste this middle earth, till the clamor of city dwellers ceased to be heard. Ancient works of giants stood empty. Now, people have taken that in a couple of different ways, but to me, it's the evidence of the Romans, the evidence of giants that were there. They built the roads of London. They're still there today. But it could also be, maybe you love Kobe Bryant. Maybe you love, oh God, you're going to laugh at me, Tupac. Eazy-E. I'm an Eazy-E guy. But maybe you love Janis Joplin or maybe Heath Ledger. The Joker. Are they still here or are they gone? Where did they go? Who took them? The ancient works of giants stood empty. He who wisely contemplates this wallstead and considers deeply the darkness of his life, mature in years, remembers many bloody battlegrounds, and so begins. Now there's a poet quoting the wanderer, and now the poet is quoting a second wanderer of his kind, right? But let's go back to this darkness. I think one of the most unbelievable, scariest, heart-rending lines. And I know I've talked about the raven a lot today. I don't know why. Lines in poetry go like this. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there and nothing more. So it is as if, in the Raven, it is if you ask the ultimate question. What does it mean? What is all this about? Not just the meaning of life, but the universe. Like, what is it? Is it good? Is it evil? Is it benign? Is it atheistic? Is there a benevolent God? I don't know. And here you go. You dare to ask that question. And you open the door to the... Now, most people would they would crack the door to the universe and maybe peek in with one eye. Not here, not Poe. Here I opened wide the door. Right? Knowing Poe, right? Oh, what does he see? Darkness there and nothing more. Oh my God. Oh my God. Not any good, but it's dark. It's indifferent, endless. So what do we see here? We see he who wisely contemplates this wall stead and considers deeply the darkness of his life. It's like Plato says, an unexamined life is not worth living. You have to look inward at times. You got to look in the mirror, man. Maybe find yourself, not your persona, not your ego. Your ego is what you've tricked yourself into believing you are. How about finding your real self? And now, Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. That's the key. Find yourself. Find the wave, the frequency that you vibrate to. Find your true self and enrich yourself. Enrich it. Okay, but here you have to, in order to do that, you have to contemplate your own darkness. Some bad stuff is going to happen to you in your life. Horrible stuff. It's not for nothing. Now, we have this. Where did the steed go? Where the young warrior? Where the treasure giver? Where the seats of fellowship? Where the hall's festivity? Alas, bright beaker. Alas, burnished warrior. Alas, pride of princess. How the time has passed, gone under night helm, as if it never was. Woo! Think about all I think COVID, man. Bright beaker. Oh, I used to actually have one. It is a horn. And they say in the Germanic, Norse kind of tradition, they say a true, I don't want to use misogynistic terms, but a true man, a true woman, a true person never sets down her glass. When you're getting drunk, you get drunk. You never set down. That's why they have a horn. They drink out of a horn because you can't put it down. You know, you can't put it down. And that is this bright beaker. Where is it? Where are all those good times? You think about COVID. When it hit. And here we are. I'm still talking to you through a screen. What happened to the time when we could look at each other in the eyes in a classroom? What happened to that? What happened to a time when you could have gatherings at well, it's back. Hopefully you're vaccinated. Okay. But it is the same with all things that you've lost. What about that girlfriend you used to have? What about all those great times with that boyfriend you had? What about the love that you felt, that deep, what you call true love? What happened to it? Where did it go? I grieve for it. I long for it. But it is from the depth of that sorrow that the meaning of life springs. From that darkness comes light. Because how do you know anything beyond contrast? We only know what good is because of evil. Think on that. Where did it all go? The pride of princess, the bright beaker, the polished warrior, a towering wall traced with serpent shapes, again, Rome, endures instead, and the dear warrior band, strength of ash spears, destroyed warriors, slaughter greedy weapons, overwhelming fate, and storms beat against the stone-faced cliffs, snow descending, seals up the ground, drumming of winter when darkness falls, not drumming of battle, drumming of winter and darkness. Oh, crap. Dum, da, da, dum, da, da. Night shadows. Oh my gosh, there's a paradox. A night shadow? It's kind of like Shakespeare says, death's second self. Here's death. And here's even more horrible death. Here we have night, but we have shadows of night. Now we're not even peering into the universe. We're peering into double darkness, double meaningless, double hopelessness. Night shadows darken from the north, send down fierce hail showers in hatred of men. It's like misanthropy. All is wretchedness in the realm of earth. Fate's work lays low, the world under heaven. Here, wealth is fleeting. Here, friend is fleeting. Here, family is fleeting. Here, humankind is fleeting. All this resting place earth shall become empty. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. When you're gone, you're gone. When you're dead, you're dead. So said a wise man as he sat in meditation. A good man holds his words back, tells his woes not too soon, bearing his inner heart before knowing the best way, an earl who acts with courage. All shall be well for him who seeks grace. Help him, our Father in heaven, where a fortress stands for us all. Okay. You guys, I want to say that I have no axe to grind here, but I do feel like that may have been added. The poem has a certain tone. It has I would say like a triumphant sorrow to it, right? It's sorrow, but it's the most intense sorrow in the world, right? And then all of a sudden, and it has all these deep meanings interfused in all this, but then all of a sudden on line 115, except that this world means nothing. The only world that means anything is when we get to the Christian heaven. To me, that doesn't pass the smell test. For Beowulf, absolutely. Beowulf is infused with Christian religious imagery all the way through. And I think one poet wrote that who was a Christian. But in this case, it's like an afterthought, right? It's like, oh, woe is me, and it's all terrible. But then there's heaven and you'll be okay there. I don't know. That's just me. So let's see what else I have here for you. It's an elegy. An elegy is a lament for the dead. In this case, it's a lament for the dead, but also the life that he once lived. There may be 3 sections to it. The Anholga, which is the solitary man who dwells in death and defeat. There's the Montkrisrig. That's probably butchered that. That's the troubled mind or the PTSD. And then there's the Schnotten on mode, which is the wise mind. So you kind of have to go through these sections of life in order to get to wisdom. And wisdom that is woe. And that reminds me of Moby Dick. There is a wisdom that is woe, but there's a woe that is madness. Yeah. Look not too long in the face of the fire. Oh man, never dream with thy hand on the helm. Believe not the artificial redness when it makes believe not the artificial flames when its redness makes all things look ghastly. On the morrow in the natural sun, the skies will be bright. Those who glared like devils in the forking flames in the morn will show in a far other, at least gentler relief. The glorious, golden, glad sun, the one true lamp, all others but liars. So what that means is, in order to understand joy, you have to embrace pain. Look not too long, though, into that fire, into that darkness, whatever metaphor you want to use. Look not too long. Why? Because it will consume you. It will take you over. And then life will be meaningless. It'll just be horror. Yeah, you're totally right. And I want you to know something. Literature is moldable. It's bendable. If you see Christian imagery in this, then it's there for you, right? I mean, as long as you can make a case for it. You can't just make it up out of the blue. You know, it's not about mermaids fighting with laser swords or something, but which would kind of be cool. But anyway, yes, I see what you're saying. Now, as far as Christianity, it reminds me very much of Job, the story of Job, where all the woes of earth are just placed on Job from God. And it's basically to show Job how much he can endure and still have faith in God. Or Ecclesiastes, that's the one that says all is vanity, all. I see many biblical parallels here for sure. Okay. Well, that was fun. I had a good time with it. Y'all want it? Let's do real quick. Let's do the Seafarer, and I'll have you guys up to speed. And the Seafarer is at that Gutenberg link I gave you. And the Seafarer, I think we can do the first 62 lines. What time is it? Yeah, we can do it. It's no big deal. It says this, the Seafarer. This is, I think it could be one of two things. It could be a conversation between an old sailor and a young sailor, or it could be an internal soliloquy from an old sailor, an experienced sailor, who flashes back and forth between his wise and mature view of the sea and the way that he felt in the beginning, the longing for it. And it goes like this. I will sing of myself a song that is true. Tell of my travels and troublesome days, how often I endured days of hardship, bitter breast care I have borne as my portion. Sorrow, right? Have seen from my ship sorrowful shores, awful welling of waves, oft on watch I have been. On the narrow night wakes at the neck of the ship, little personification at the helm, the neck, I guess. When it crashed into cliffs and with cold often pinched, were my freezing feet by frost bound tight. In its blighting clutch, cares then burned me, hot around my heart. Look at that imagery, sensory details of cold. We have his feet are freezing because they're wet. And in that horror of cold that is pinching, it's a pinching, in the midst of all that, he is burned by the cares of his life. See the paradox there? To my sea-weary soul to conceive this is hard. For the landsman who gives on the lonely shore, how sorrowful and sad. On a sea ice cold, I eked out my exile through the awful winter, and this is the part we don't know what it says there, deprived of my kinsmen, hung about by icicles. Hail flew in showers. There I heard not but the howl of the sea, the ice-cold surge, with a swan song at times, the note of the gannet, for gaiety served me, the seabird song for sayings of people, for the mead drink of men, the muse sad note. All those are birds. Swan song could mean your final performance or the last day of your life. This is my swan song. But it could also mean the song of a bird. A gannet is a bird. It's like an albatross-like bird, big white bird. He says, for the sayings of people, I only had the bird's song. For the gaiety of life, I only had the gannet, the bird. For the drinking with my buddies, all I had was the muse sad note. A mew is like it's being used here as a bird, but it's like a high-pitched crying noise, like a bird. They were in storms. And then look at part. Okay, we keep going. Ice of feather and eagle, and the eagle scream, the dewy winged bird. No dear friend comes with merciful kindness. My mystery to conquer of this little can judge. Who has joy in his life and settled in the city is sated, like satiated with wine. Okay, and proud and prosperous. How painful it is when I wearily wander on the waves full oft. Night shadows descended. It snowed from the north. The world was fettered. That word again, restrained with chains. The world was fettered with frost. Hail fell to the earth, the coldest of corns. Here's the young guy, the youth that wants to go to sea, just dying to go to sea. I think you could find great wisdom in this. It's the difference between the reality of something and the hope of something. And it goes like this. The young sailor says, yet course now desires, which surge in my heart for the high seas, that I test the terrors of tossing waves. My soul constantly kindles in keenest impatience to fare itself forth and far off hence. Listen to the alliteration there. To fare itself forth and far off hence. To seek the strands or the beaches of stranger tribes. So that is beautiful to me. I love to travel. Boy, I love to travel. And if you look at that, that is like this wanderlust to go traveling. I would like to touch the beaches of strange new people. I would like to learn the rhythms of their speech. I would like to taste the tastes of their cuisine. I would like to get to know their morals, their values. I'd like to know what they think, how they do things. And then here's the old sailor again. There is one in this world so overweening in power, so good in his grieving, so gallant in his youth, so daring in his deeds, so dear to his Lord, but that he leaves the land and longs for the sea. By the grace of God he will gain or lose, nor hearkens he to harp, nor has heart for gift treasures, nor in the wiles of a wife, nor in the world rejoices, save in the welling of waves. No wilt takes the pleasure, but he ever has longing, who is lured by the sea. Now, you could make a case that that's the young guy too. But what that's saying is like, I don't know, you ever known a dancer? Like someone who just wants to dance? You ever known a writer? An author? You ever known someone who is just really enthralled with something like that, who has a passion? I say writers, authors, they don't write because they want to. Painters, artists, they don't do it because they want to. They do it because they have to. It's somehow intertwined with their soul. It is their code, their meaning. It's their being. It's like that too with sailors, he's saying. There are people who they are destined to forego all the beauties of land and follow the sea. Here's the youth again. I almost want to put a but there. The forests are in flower, and fair are the hamlets. The woods are in bloom. The world is astir. Everything urges one eager to travel, sends the seeker of seas afar to try his fortune on the terrible foam of the ocean. Man, you're barking up a seriously tall tree when you go to sea. And then and just think about that. It's every enchanted object that calls you. But here's the old sailor again, warning. Oh, I know you hear that. I know the worlds for you are in bloom and you want to go find it. But listen carefully, because the cuckoo warns. More birds. The cuckoo warns in its woeful call. The summerward sings sorrow foretelling. Heavy to the heart. Hard it is to know for the man of pleasure what many with patience endure who dare the dangers of exile. In my bursting breast now burns my heart. This is the youth again. But never mind your wisdom. In my bursting breast now burns my heart. My spirit sallies over the sea floods wide, sails o'er the waves, wanders afar to the bounds of the world, and back at once, eagerly, longingly. The lone flyer beckons my soul unnecessarily to sail o'er the whale path. A kinning there. The whale path is the sea, over the waves of the sea. It's like a wanderlust, isn't it? It's kind of in some ways like the wanderer, only the wanderer is kind of condemned. But this youth, it's almost as if you have a youth speaking to the wanderer. Hey, man, I'd like to go to sea. Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever known anybody that's done this? This is just, no. I feel it. I want it. I want it so bad. You sure? Because, I've been there, and I don't know. Right? You have wise people in your life, and they'll tell you. They'll say things to you, and you'll just oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And you'll go off. At least me, I'll go off charging and do. Yeah. But maybe part of this poem is to listen and heed that call, at least. And then the other part of it is, you guys, I don't know what you're studying to do. Maybe some of you want to be doctors. Maybe some of you want to be astronomers. God forbid, some of you maybe want to be teachers. No, it's a noble pursuit. But nurses, physical therapists, whatever, I can guarantee you the job that you get to is going to be nothing like the dream that you have of it. Maybe it's better, but definitely different. Okay. So I see in this poem kind of like that, the ideal of this thing, and then the reality once you get there. But my message to you today for both poems is don't let the reality spoil things for you. If you feel that thing burning in your soul, go for it. What else are you going to do? Because what's the meaning of life? To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.